The small town of Black Hollow had always revolved around St. Mercy Church. It stood at the heart of the town, its towering spires piercing the sky, its grand stained glass windows depicting biblical tales of redemption and damnation. The church bells, once a beacon of hope, had chimed for centuries, calling sinners and saints alike to seek absolution. For years, the people believed that the confession box of St. Mercy Church held a divine power, a place where God himself listened. No matter how terrible the sin, those who confessed within its wooden walls found peace, forgiveness, and redemption. But something changed. A force unknown, unseen, yet undeniably present had taken residence within the confession box. And it did not believe in forgiveness. It believed in justice. One by one, sinners met their fates in the most horrifying ways imaginable. It began with Gregory Holt, the town's wealthiest banker, known for his charming smile, but also for his ruthless greed. He had stolen millions from the townspeople, forced struggling families into homelessness, and driven desperate men to suicide. And yet, he walked into the confession box with a confident smirk. He knelt, placed his hands together, and began. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have taken more than I should have, but I have repented. I wish for mercy." The priest on the other side of the wooden screen remained silent. Gregory frowned. The air had become thick, suffocating. The candle inside the booth flickered unnaturally, casting twisted shadows. Then, no mercy for the damned. A voice, but not the priest's. This voice was ancient, guttural, and inhuman. A voice that did not belong in the house of God. Gregory's breath hitched. The wooden walls seemed to close in. The shadows stretched, twisting into long, clawed hands. The very air became heavy, pressing down on him like an invisible weight. Then, his fingers snapped backward one by one. A scream tore from his throat as his arms twisted in ways that no human body should endure. Blood splattered against the wooden walls as his bones shattered. The church doors slammed open. The congregation turned and gasped in horror. Gregory staggered out, his body contorted grotesquely. His eyes, now hollow and black, wept blood as his skin peeled away in chunks, revealing the rotting flesh beneath. He fell to his knees, mouth gaping in a silent scream. And then, his body collapsed into dust. Only his clothes and gold rings remained, clinking against the stone floor. Whispers spread like wildfire. Fear infected the town like a plague. Something was inside the confession box. Something that was not God. But justice continued. Every Sunday, another sinner stepped forward. A teacher who had preyed on his students. He entered the box, hoping for absolution. Instead, his tongue rotted in his mouth, black and swollen, as his skin melted off his bones. He burst into flames before the horrified congregation. A drunkard who had beaten his wife to death, confessed his sins, only to collapse onto the floor as his ribs caved in, as if invisible hands were crushing his lungs. He choked on his own blood, his body twisting into an unnatural shape before his flesh peeled away, leaving only bones behind. A young woman, who had poisoned her sister for an inheritance, walked into the box. When she emerged, her veins blackened, her skin cracked like dry earth, and she screamed in agony before she was ripped apart by unseen forces. One by one, they were judged, and one by one, they perished. The town descended into terror. People stopped going to church. They avoided the confession box, whispered about a presence, a force beyond human comprehension. Some claimed that it was the devil himself, hiding in the house of God. But Father Samuel, the priest, refused to abandon his church. One night, he knelt before the altar, his trembling hands clutching the crucifix. "Lord, what is this? What has taken hold of your house?" A whisper echoed through the empty church. Not the devil. The candles flickered, and shadows stretched unnaturally. Father Samuel's breath hitched. He turned, slowly, toward the confession box. The wooden doors creaked open on their own. A black mist slithered out. Then, a figure, draped in a tattered, hooded cloak. Its body seemed to be made of darkness itself. The edges of its form shifted, wavered, like smoke caught in an eternal storm. But its face, it had no face. Only a void. "Who are you?" Father Samuel whispered. The figure tilted its head. The very air around it warped, the temperature dropping. "I am Justice." Father Samuel fell to his knees, his lips moving in silent prayer. The figure drifted closer, its form gliding over the stone floor without a sound. "Forgiveness is a lie. They come seeking absolution, but absolution is undeserved." Father Samuel's heart pounded violently against his ribs. Why now? Why here? The entity was silent for a long time. Then it raised a bony, shadowed hand and pointed to the altar. The stained glass windows shuddered violently. The images of saints and angels cracking, distorting. Then they changed. The once beautiful depictions of biblical figures shifted into twisted, grotesque visions of suffering souls, screaming, their flesh torn from their bodies. And at the center of it all, a crimson throne, with the figure seated upon it. Father Samuel clutched his chest, gasping. He understood now. This was not the devil, not a demon, not a ghost. It was something older. Something that had existed before heaven and hell. A force that had watched humanity sin for millennia. And now it had awakened, and it would not stop. Not until every sinner had been judged. The church remained open, but fear kept people away. St. Mercy Church, once a place of peace, became a place of nightmares. But some still came. Some still stepped into the confession box, foolishly hoping for mercy. And every time, the bells would toll, and the town would hear the screams. The priests stopped intervening. They no longer tried to stop it, because they knew this was not a curse. This was justice, and justice would not be denied. And somewhere in the shadows, from the depths of the confession box, it watched and waited for the next sinner